Boker Tov, today's Daf is Daf Nun in Gitin, as we learned for Shlema, for Lozer ben Reuma, and for Yosef Azriel ben Chaim Michal, and for Nechamet Sharon Abbas Vega, for Shlema. Today's Daf, we'll start about 10 lines down on the bottom on the page at the two dots. Let's say there's an IOU that's on Yisomim, meaning the father had owed money. The father was the debtor. The father died, and now the creditor is coming to the orphans. Even though it's written in the shtar that the creditor is going to be able to take from the best, the superior lands that the debtor has, he still only would collect from the most inferior lands. We've discussed that there could be different stages, but in general, when you talk about a person having superior, average, and inferior lands, it's also subjective. It depends on the person. But when the person is collecting from the debtor, what is he entitled to? So we said, Torah, you only collect from the worst, the inferior. He gives him whatever he has. But we said, Midrabanan, the rabbi said you collect from the average, so that otherwise people will not lend out their money because they know they're going to get the worst stuff. So when it comes to Yisomim, though, we say that since the Yisomim cannot defend themselves and they're not capable, so we go by the Din Torah and we collect only from Ziburis. But let's say Rav Meir Shapiro and the son of said Rav Nachman, his father, that if there's a shtar b'chov, even though the IOU says specifically you're going to collect from the best land, still if you're collecting from Yisomim, you only collect from the worst land. I'm Rabbi Tata, what's the proof? The B'chov, din of Beinus, because of B'chov, the regular din is Beinus and Miyasmi Ziburis. A regular B'chov collects from Beinus, from the average land, and yet when it comes to Yisomim, you only collect from the worst land. So that's his proof to that idea that Mar Zutra says. Amalei Rabba says, when you compare the two, Balchov dina bin araisa b'ziburas. Now Balchov min Torah, what can the creditor collect? We said before, Kiraula. He only collects from the worst land. Kiraul damar ula dvar Torah Balchov b'ziburas. The Balchov collects from the worst, the most inferior land. Shneimar b'chutz tamod. When you come to collect your loan, if you're the creditor, you come to collect on. The pasuk says, you shouldn't go inside to his house to take his pledge. Stand outside, and the person who owes you the money will come out and give you his stuff. What does a person normally want to give out? If he gives out, he wants to give pachash of a kalim, his least value kalim, his worst kalim. He doesn't want to give you his best stuff. So that's Minotaur. Minotaur, all you have to pay if you're the debtor is the worst. Why does the Torah say that? Why did the rabbi say that a bachov collects from the average land? So you shouldn't shut the door in the face of debtors. In other words, in order to make money available, if the creditor knows he's only going to be able to collect from the worst land that you have, he's not going to lend you money. So the rabbi said, you know what, collect from Beinus. Like Gabi Yisomim, but when it comes to Yisomim, with the countering argument, on the one hand, we want to extend and make sure the loans are available, money is available. So we say that the creditor can collect from average land. But when it comes to Yisomim, to defend the Yisomim, they can't defend themselves. We rachmanos on them. We said, okay, go by the Daraisa and collect Ziburis. That's normally by a loan. You want to, as Rabbi said to buy, you want to prove it from a regular loan where you collect from Beinus and from Yisomim Ziburis. That's on a regular loan. Where Torah you can only really collect from Ziburis, and it's only Midrabanan that the rabbi said, well, you can collect from Beinus in order not to shut the door on debtors. And when it comes to Yisomim, we go by the halacha min Torah that you can only collect from Ziburis. Elahacha, but over here in this case, what happened? There was a loan, and in the loan it said specifically that you're going to be able to collect from the best stuff. Elahacha, even the din of midaraisa this here midaraisa you collect this. Why? Because you wrote that in the loan. And Rashi brings down, where do we get this idea that min Torah, if you obligate your something, you're chayav? It says by Yehudi, you said, Anochi Arvenu, I'm going to be his Arv, even though we just had yesterday's Daf, that sometimes an Arv doesn't really mean it, right? An Arv of Ksuba doesn't really mean it. He's doing a mitzvah, and she's not losing anything. So it depends what he means, but if he means it, he means it. And here he signed it in a document. Torah should be able to collect from the best. So given the din of Midaraisa Midas, Afilu Miyasme Nam Midas, Shashma collect Midas. In other words, Rav is arguing against Abaya, who is defending and proving Mar Zutra, that even if the shtar is written, I'm going to collect from Midas, if you're coming to the Yisomim to collect, if the guy died, the debtor died home, sometimes you can only collect from Ziburis. He says, no, over here it's different because he wrote in the star, going to collect from the best. Now, Yomi asked me now, this. So, Rava, what do you mean? According to Rava, Batani Avram Chazah said, Ain't from some element of Ziburis. As we said in the from Yisomim, we said that in the Mishnah too, Ain't from some Ella Mina Ziburis. The Mishnah said that, right? Ain't from some element of Ziburis. He learned that. Va'afilo hein nazakin. Even if we're talking about damages, va'nazakin did a medaraisa midas, as we said, meitiv sedei meitiv kamishalim. Medaraisa you collect from the best, and still you from the some you collect from the worst. So over here too, how do you say since it's daraisa in the star, you should be able to collect me some also from the star? No, he said that even though medaraisa you collect from midas from meitiv sedei meitiv kamishalim, still from you some you only collect from Ziburis, like Abaye and like Marsutra said. Yes, no. They're speaking on shars like we learned yesterday. Say edis nizik because it was the mazik. When we say collect the edis, it's the edis of the nizik, which is like the worst of the mazik. Rabbi Shmuel goes like Rabbi Shmuel, or medaraisa and nizik sheminim. You go according to the nizik, and it's the nizik's best, but it's the mazik's worst. And they take an olam, takin rabbanim and a mazik. They take that was the point of our mission. The first answer we gave. Why does our mission say they take an olam if it's a daraisa? The answer is daraisa. You only collect from the best of the nizik. Comes along the rabbanim, they take it olam. We say we want to discourage the mazik from doing damage to somebody else. So we say you can only collect. You even collect from the mazik's best, even if the mazik's best is much better than the nizik's best. The gabi yasmi ikmur rabbana daraisa. And when it comes to some, the pussy they want by daraisa, which is been a nizik shamina. And yes, it's nizik shamina, but it's the nizik. It's the best of the nizik, which could be the worst of the mazik, and therefore. That makes sense. Rabbi Shmuel Yidam B'Raisa B'Nizik Shemina Metikanam Rabbi Nizik Gavi Yasmik B'Raisa we said only collect from the best of the nizik, which is the worst of the mazik, which is Ziburis. So there it's different. Don't ask me a kasha from the zakum, which is the Raisa B'Idis. That the Raisa B'Idis is the idis of the nizik, which is the mazik's worst. Aini Vatan Rav Lezer and Rav Lezer said Aini from Nechsi some element is worse. Afilu Hainidis. Again, what's the whole issue over here? Normally, you only collect you some from Ziburis, from the worst lands that are there, because they can't defend themselves. Fine. But Nachman comes along and says, if it's written in the star, though, even in that case, you say you can only collect from Ziburis. And Abaye approved it. And Rabbi said, what do you mean? It's written in the star. It's like a doraisa. You should be able to collect it. So what about Rabbi? Ain't from Ziburis, even the Zikin, which is doraisa. Now that the Zikin doraisa is the Ziburis of the mazik. The best of the nizik, which is the ziburis of the mazik, so you're still going by the ziburis. So we still have this argument. On the one hand, we have Marzutra and Abaye saying if it's written in the star, you're going to collect midas. Even though it's written in the star, you're only going to collect from Yisom with ziburis. And Rava counteracted and said, no, that's different. Because there, Balchov, Midaraisa ziburis, and Midarabbanan, the Rabbanan said, okay, Shalotin al-Danalis, and not to knock the door on debtors. We say Betanis, and by Zisom we go back to Ziburis, which is Minat Torah. But over here, you wrote in the star. You wrote in the star, you're going to collect meters. So even for Zisom, you should be able to collect. So the Gemara is going to prove our time. Here's a proof. Here's a proof to what Marzutra and Abaye said. He says you only collect from Yisomim from Ziburis, even Edis. Even what do you mean afilu ha'nidus? What do you mean even if it's the edus? What does that mean? My afilu ha'nidus lav afagam tachsiv edus b'shtar. Even though the star says that the creditor is going to be able to collect from the best of the lands, when you collect from Yisom, you still only collect from Ziburis, which is another proof to what Marzetra says. Lo, my edus shafoy edus. What does edus mean over here? Shafoy edus. So Rashi and Tosfos disagree over here. The pshat and shafoy edus. Rashi learns that shafoy edus means the edus that jumped away from you. What does that mean? Let's say you promised the best of the land, a certain land which is the top land. This is your best piece of land. But then bandits took it away, or it was overrun by water, it was ruined. It's not, you can't collect from it anymore. That's when we say, even though you can't collect it, then you collect from Ziburis. That's when it's Tosfos a whole different thing. It just means parts of the good land, but land that can't be cultivated because it's the strips on the side or something of that sort. In any case, what he means over here is even though it says edus doesn't mean I promise you edus, you only collect from Ziburis. Rava will maintain no. If you promise edus, you should be able to collect edus even from Yisomim. What does it mean over here? You can only collect from Ziburis even if there's edus. If there's special edus that was so good, but it's gone now, it jumped away. Shafoy, it jumped away. It's not here anymore. And if it doesn't jump away anymore, we go back to the regular halachas of if it's a regular creditor, he collects from Baininus. If it's from Yisam, he collects from Ziburis. Get Rav Damarava, Hizik Ziburis, Government. When it comes to damages, we learned in the Mishnah, if you damage somebody's land, no matter what you damage, you still collect from the best. What best is that? It's the Mazik's best. According to Rabbi Shmuel, that's Midrabban and Tikkun Olam. According to Rabbi Kiva, that's the Araisa. Shefoidus, if you damage Shefoidus, meaning that it's not collectible anymore, government abatements. You collect it, so then you go back to the regular halachas of collection of a balchov, nezikin. You collect from Edis. Who's Edis? Okay, according to Rabbi Shmuel Midaraisa, it's the niziks Midrabban and the Masik. According to Rabbi Kiva, even the Raisa, it's the Masik. But if we're talking about Shefoidus, government abatements. In other words, if Shefoidus, after you damage and there still has other pieces of land, this was the best one, but it's gone now. Still government opinion is for Gabi Yasmin. What about the Raisa? When it comes to Yisomim, you go by the Deraisa, which is Ziburis. All right, so and it's Hizik Ziburis. He says, I'm Rabbi Hizik Ziburis, government Aidis, because that's the regular halacha, right? Regular halacha. We come to Bishmal, that's Rabban. According to Rabbi Kiva, that's the Raisa. Shefoidus la'achar shehizik v'adayin yeshlo Idis ubenes v'Ziburis el shezua yafamot government the Ozolei Dina. Then he was supposed to collect from the buried death. Stop. You were supposed to collect from there, but that's gone. But in taking it Olam, we said, you're still collecting from Baininus. When it comes to Yisomim, you collect from the worst, which is the Daraisa, which is Ziburis. In other words, the best land was really gone. You were supposed to collect from the best land's gone. You were supposed to collect from there, that's gone. Now you can only have Baininus in a regular case, or from Yisomim, only Ziburis. So that's the general idea. Now notice, it says, Einafram Nechsi Yisomim and Ziburis. Really, the Gemara in Amud Beis is going to talk about Mishubadim. In our Mishnah, we mentioned and then we talk about Yisam. Here, we're mentioning the Gemara is dealing with that first. It's sort of reverse, but it could be that the reason for that is because we talked about further up in this Gemara when we talk here about when you wrote in a Shtar Chov Edis. And then, but from Yisam, you collect Zibur. So we're dealing with the Yisam aspect first, even though it's reversed in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, it talks about Nechasim Mishibadim before it talks about Yisam. Because in court, in other words, as we'll see, we're going to see that right now. Had they known their father's business, maybe they could have said, the father been alive. The father might have said, "I paid you already. You already collected." Their kids don't know. That's what the Gemara is going to deal with right now. When we say Yisomim, we're talking about young children under bar mitzvah, and the reason basically is because we have a chmanas on them, because they can't. What you want to take their best land? Let the creditor take the best land because he can deal with it. Let him take the worst land. Let him sell it. You're going to leave you the worst land. They're not going to be able to sell it too well. It's not going to. We're not talking about the actual value. Whatever the damage was, $1,000, you're going to get $1,000. $1,000 of a poor land. Let's say that's an acre. Of better land, a quarter of an acre is worth the same $1,000. I'm not talking about the monetary value. We're talking about it's better to have good land than bad land. So when it comes to Yisomim, we have rachmanas on them. So we say, look, you're going to leave them the worst land. Let them pay off their loan or their debt, whatever it is, with their debt or the damages, whatever it was, let them pay it off with their worst land. So, and let the creditor, who's an adult, let him deal with it. So the question is, are we only talking about young children? Oh, if you look dumb, or are we talking about even 20-year-olds who are Yisomim? As their father just died, if you look dumb, Takanti, the Rabbanan made a remedy for Yisam Gabi Yisomim, L'Tanam of Rabbanan, the Rabbanan. They did a remedy for Tana because you're Rachmanas on them, like Rashi says, Lochus ala Yisomim, to go by the Din Torah, because the Din Torah, you can only collect Shazet Torah, Chamochras, Ziburis, She'ela Misha. Nobody's going to, they don't have a guardian who's going to act on their behalf. So don't leave them with the worst land. It's Rachmanas. So maybe it's only on little children, but not on adult children. The reason is this. Why did the rabbi say when it comes to specifically a loan? We just said by Nezikin also, if we're talking about simply about a loan, we're not talking really about Nezikin. But he even mentioned, we mentioned before, even when it comes to the Zikin, like we had that case of just now of Avram Chazor and some scores for the Zikin, even though it's the Zikin, even the damages you collect from Zibor, but even with damages was the issue, not a loan. But here specifically, let's say we talk about a loan. So the rabbi said when it comes to a loan, the creditor can collect, even though mandatory only collect from the worst, let him give you whatever he has, right? If he doesn't have cash, obviously. If he doesn't have cash, take his worst land. Cash is always the best. If he doesn't have cash, take his worst. But the rabbi said, no, take the average so that people should lend money. Otherwise, if people look at creditors are going to know they're only getting the worst land, they won't lend out money. That reason would apply even by Gedolim. Why? Odilma says the Gemara Mishum Delo Masik Adaite, the Malva, the Meislova. The reason why we say that from Yisomim you can only collect with Ziburas is because the reason for the takana for Baininus is because otherwise people are going to lend money. But a Malva is never going to think that maybe the Lova is going to die. He's worried about what he's going to collect from. Odil Mishum Delo Masik Adaite, the Malva he's not going to think he's going to die. But enough he said Kamei Asme, and then Yisom going to flip him. Dabbling no Delis. And then he's not going to borrow them, lend out the money. In other words, if the reason is, look, Minatorah, you can only collect a loan even from Zibur, only Ziburas. Okay. But the rabbi said, Shalotan Aldemos, so you should have money, so the creditor should lend out their money, collect from Baininus. But that reason will only apply in a normal case. In a normal case, I'm going to let this guy money, okay, if I'm going to pay this, I'll get it back. But the creditor will never anticipate that maybe the guy will die. He'll figure maybe he won't have land, he won't have the money to pay back, so I want to collect the land. He's not thinking he's going to die, and therefore there was no reason to make the takana of the old else, no reason to make the takana of Baininus for a case where the guy's going to die. So it goes around something that's not likely going to happen. They didn't make Xera there. The rabbis made Xera, even though normally creditor can only collect from the worst land. But so they'll tell Dental so that we should have money available, so creditors should want to lend out their money, collect from Baininus. That's only in a normal case, but in a case where the debtor dies, he's not going to anticipate that case. So maybe in a case like that, the rabbis didn't make that takana, and therefore, as long as the debtor is dead, we don't care what age his children are. We don't care what age his children are. You're going to collect from Ziburas. You can only collect from Ziburas because that's the regular halacha that a creditor can only collect Ziburas. Except the rabbi said, so that a creditor should lend out his money, we're going to say you can collect from Baininus. They only made that takana in a regular case. Again, look inside. Is it a takana that they made Rabban for Achmanis for Yisomim Ktanim? So it's only for Ktanim, not for Agdolim. The Malva is not going to think the Mesa is going to die for enough Sekameh, and have they no Delis, and it's a case of no Delis, so that's why he's going to lend out money. He's not going to think of that. And as Rashi explains, the long Rashi on still in the narrow lines. Look, man, Rashi, go by the Rice of Ziburas, Shadina Basuras, the time of my Rabban and Shumil Sandal. Even if they didn't make a takana that you're going to collect from Yisom Baininus, ain't kind of Delos. So he's not going to think about that. Little Delos, he's not going to say, I'm not going to lend out money because maybe the guy's going to die. He's not going to think of that case. In other words, if the reason is because he's not going to anticipate the death of the debtor, then it doesn't make any difference if the kids are little or the kids are adults. That's the question. So Toshma, therefore, even by Gdolim, the law should be like the halacha in the Torah. You only collect the Ziburas.
How long would somebody be considered
any age.
Us?
Yeah, any age. Yeah.
So you would never have the case of Baininus.
We're talking about where you're collecting
during
something. You're collecting during the time period. It's not clear that the time period after the father died, before the son took over the business, before he knows what's going on. That's the issue. So we're going to bring a proof from Tashma Tani Abayik Shisha. Abayik said, "Yesom Shamu Gdolim. Could even be Gdolim. Ain't Sochlam Mektanim. It could even be Ktanim. In other words, it could be it does certainly Ktanim, but even Gdolim. That's the Gemara of Dilma Hani Million Shvua. That's when it comes to make a shvua. We have a rule that you're going to collect when you collect Yisomim, you have to make a shvua. What's the reason I have to make a shvua? Because had the father been alive, maybe he would have said, I paid you already. And that's just long because here's the issue that it shows even if they're Gdolim. Why? Because even Gdolim may not know what their father died. What always happens when somebody dies suddenly? They don't know where the will is. They don't know where his money is. They don't know what his dealings were. All of a sudden, the family's picking up the pieces, right? So that's when it comes to making a shvu, we say that the gadol can be immediately davur because a gadol, even though he's an adult, when it comes to his father's financial matters, he's like a cotton. He doesn't know what's going on. So there, when it comes to making a shvua, we say you have to collect. When you collect from Yisomim, you have to make a shvua. Why? Because had the father been alive, he might have said, "I paid you already." Proved you I didn't pay. So therefore, we say there. So the Gemara says that. So the Gemara says maybe that's only comes to make a shvua because even a gadol, when it comes to matters, financial matters, he's like a cotton. He doesn't know what's going on. So there, you have to make a shvua when it comes to like when it goes. I believe ziburis. When it comes to ziburis, maybe not. Maybe the rabbis said their takana and allowed the takana was only for adults, but for there's the takana that you go back and you disband the reason of Noel Delis, and you say go by the halachim in the Torah that you only can collect medera ziburis. That's only rachmanas for ktanim, but not for gdolim. The halacha is yisom shamru gdolim eitzach lamektanim. The rule is yisom whether the gdolim are ktanim. Bein l'shvua, bein l'ziburis. Whether it comes for a shvua or for ziburis, you only collect from ziburis. In other words, apparently it doesn't make any difference what age the yisomim are. That doesn't tell us exactly what they are. You could be 25 or 30, or like you say, even if our father just died and we don't know what his business was, we don't know. Maybe he would have argued this, and or the svara is for the Rabbanim didn't make a takana when it comes to yisomim because they didn't anticipate that the guy's not. Maybe if the guy was older and if you're an older son, if you're 70 and your father just died at age 95 or 100, maybe there he would have anticipated the death of the debtor. So there's probably a limit to it, but the Gemara doesn't specify. Pardon? He wouldn't have lied to him in the first place. Exactly right. Yeah. So you didn't anticipate that. So here we have halacha. We've been talking about for the last couple of days. What do you collect from? If you damage somebody, you got to collect from. You collect from his best, the best stuff that the mazik has, whether it's Rabbana Deraisa, Machlekes Shema Kiva, or Berbak Ksubas Isha. So we say Ksubas Isha also. Mena Torah. What's the reason why Ksubas Isha? Baininess. Why? Because so that women should want to get married. And we said Yisomim, so Rahmanas on them, or they didn't make a takana of Sholto Denos, and therefore even Yisomim Gedolim. But we also said these rules about Edis, the Baininus, the Buris, whether it's the best, the average land, or the worst land, that's only if the guy has the land here in front of him. He's got property, meaning when you come to collect from somebody for damages, for a loan, cash, people want money. They don't want. I want cash. I don't give you your property. Don't give me your assets. Like the bank doesn't want to repossess your property. Doesn't want you to foreclose, and they don't want to foreclose and take your property. And then they have to sell it. They want cash. They want money. Everybody wants cash. That's the best. That's the best way to pay if you don't have money. So they come and take your land. Which land? Okay, so it depends on the circumstances. The Zok taking the best. Subasisha from the average, or from the Ziburis according to the Tanakama. A loan from Baininus. Yisomim, only Ziburis, that's only if the land you have is here, right? That's only if you have land. But if the land that you have has already been sold, even subsequent to the time that you had the obligation, subsequent to the damage, subsequent to the loan, subsequent to the ksuba, the ksuba was written, then you subsequently sold that land to somebody else. So the Mishnah says, Ein nefram mishubadim. Mishubadim means it's obligated, it's mortgaged, lien to somebody else now. Meaning this: if I have no land, I owe you $1,000. I don't have any cash. I had some land, but I sold it. Sold it yesterday to Michael. I sold it. Well, if you had a prior lien on it because I owed you money from last week, or I damaged you, you can go take it from Michael. You only got one piece of land. That's all I had. Go take it. Not a problem, right? But if I have any land, even if you're entitled to the best land because I damaged you, or you're entitled to average land because you lent me money, right? You're entitled to that. But if that land that I had, which was best land or average land, is in Michael's hands now because I sold it to him, and I have lousy land, you have to come to me first because my land is available. It's berechon, it's not obligated. The land I sold to Michael is obligated to him, even though that obligation took place later. But it's obligated to him. It's in his hands now. That's nechasim mishabarim. I don't have any cash, but I got some lousy land over here. You got to take that first. There's the rules about taking best land, average land. That's only if I have the land. You have a choice what you can take from me, right? If I'm the mazik or I'm the debtor or whatever, I'm the husband, whatever it is. That's if I have these lands. But if all my good land has been sold and I have some lousy land, you got to take the lousy land first. Why? Because you're going to hurt the other people. You're going to hurt Michael who bought the land from me later on. Is that only if I sold the land to Michael? So he's got some money on the table, right? He paid me for that good land. He paid me for good land. So if I only have lousy land, even though you should be able to collect from the best or the average, if all I have is lousy, but I have it here, it's not the obligated or mortgage to Michael or anybody else. You got to take that first.
You got cash.
Pardon? If I have cash is the best. Yeah, that cash is gone. That cash is gone. I left it at the racetrack. It's gone. The money's gone. If you have money, you have money, right? But I had some good land, but I sold it to Michael. Now I have some lousy land. All you can take is my lousy land. That's what it says. What happens if I didn't sell it to Michael? I only gave it to him. I gave him the land. So he's not really, he didn't really spend any money over here. So maybe, and he has better land. You're entitled to better land. I damaged you. You're entitled to take my best land. My best land I gave to Michael now. I have some lousy land. What's the deal there? So boy, Rabachli Barami Matoneh. To counter the Rabbanim Mishum Seilah, because the Rabbanim made a takana, a remedy. Why? They said, collect my worst land, because why should Michael lose out? He spent money. He gave me money. The money's gone now, but he gave me money. Why should he lose out? So the Rabbanim said, take my worst land. But I gave it to him. He didn't lose anything. Maybe no. Maybe there. You should be able to take Michael's good land. If you're entitled to good land, average land, better land, you're entitled to take it, even though I have poor land, because he didn't lose anything. Even my gift, if it wouldn't be that I had some pleasure from Michael, I wouldn't be giving him a gift. People don't give gifts generally out of their good heartedness. It's usually, tit for tat. You help me, I help you. If I gave him a gift, it's maybe because I owed him something or he did something good for me. It's like he's losing out. So therefore, maybe the rabbi said that even in a case where I gave it to him as a gift, still you can only collect if I have lousy land, you got to take the lousy land. Always a machlokes from Babas Daf Zion, whether Makshisha was the older son of Rav Chisda or the younger son of Rav Chisda. But Makshisha was the son of Rav Chisda said, Rashi Tashmal proof me. A man is dying on his deathbed. Sha'amar. Tanuma saying says, you know what? I got $900 left. Give 200 to Reuben, 300 to Shimon, 400 to Levi. Messiah's Laploni, give him Meos Laploni, Dalmes Laploni. He said, Enom now, what happens? Enom called Mishtar Zocha. Right? Let's say so he gave away the $900. Now, somebody, after he dies, somebody's got a claim of $100 on the estate. So what did he say over there? He said 200 to number one, 300 to number two, 400. So the guy's got a claim of $100. Would you say he should take it from the last guy, right? That's what you say. No, you didn't say it. He didn't say, Einom, we don't say whoever got there first. Like the guy, the $200 should get his, 300 should get his. Take the $100 from the last guy because he got $400. Take it all from him. No, because the reason why he said he couldn't say it all at one shot. He really meant to say, give 200 to this guy, 300 to this guy, 400 to this guy. He wanted to say it all at one time, but he can only say one thing at a time. His mouth only works on one word at a time, right? But we can't do two words at one time. So he said it in that order. Let's say now somebody's got a loan of $100. Go mikun, you take from all of them. In other words, out of the $100, 2/9 of the $100 is paid by the first guy, 3/9 by the second guy, 4/9 by the third guy. That's how it works. They all pay off the loan. Avo, that's in that case. If the Shchid Meirah said, give $200 first to Reuven, give him his money first. Achrav, whatever's left after him, if anything's left, give 300 to Shimon. Leplani, Achrav Leplani, and whatever's left from that, give 400 to Levi. Then, if somebody has a claim, who has to pay? The last guy has to pay first, because he said first I gave it this guy, first gave it to Reuben. It's like signed and turned over already. So he first gave money to Reuben. Reuben got his money. Shem gave Shem money. If there's a claim of $900 on the estate, then obviously they all have to give up their money. But if there's a claim of only $100, only the last guy has to pay. First guy, go Menachem, you take from the last guy, from Levi. If there's not enough from there, go Mishal, and then you go back to Shimon. Go Mishal. Bafagav, the Kama Banners, even though the first guy, Reuben got maybe the better land, the $200 was in the land, got the better land. Ubasra Ziburis, the last guy got Ziburis, you still collect from the last guy. Ziburis, Bafagav, the Kama Banner, even though the first guy is Banners, Ubasra Ziburis, Ziburis government, in other words, you collect from the last guy. That means to say that you always collect from whatever's left, meaning that even though it's a matana, even though it was a gift, meaning when we said that if I owe you money for damages or a loan, and you have to collect from me, I had different lands. I had good lands and bad lands. I gave my good stuff to Michael, even though I gave it to him as a gift. You can't take that land. You have to come and take my worst land, as you see over here. Even though the first guy had better land, the guy who got $200 of good land, and the guy who got $400 got bad land. You still can only collect from the bad land, even though it was a gift. So it's a proof that the rabbis made that takana, that when you come to collect from me, because of Seder Lekuchos, whether he paid cash or he bought it from me or I gave it to him, either way, you can't collect from him if I have anything available. When the Shemar said that he pays back, give 200 to this guy, 300 to this guy, 400 to this guy, it wasn't a gift, he was paying back his loans. I bought Tnu, he says, give it. Tnu B'chovi, give it for my loan. So if there was a loan, so what are you talking about? Give him 200, 300, 400. Whose loan? Look at whose loan was first. You look at who had a prior lien. Let's see whose star of Reuben Shimon Levi was first. There's no star. It was a loan Balpeh, or it's gone now. There's no star. So he says there's like a star Dalva. The Milbalpeh. These were all oral loans. It was an IOU, it was a handshake, like a star. But call it star. How can you say there's no star? It says whoever's first in the star. That's b'shtar pakarata. In the will, when he said those words, give 200 to this guy, 300 to this guy, 400 to that guy, that's like written down. That was his last testament. That's what we mean. That's what we mean by the star. So one answer is that we're not talking about a gift over here. We're talking about a loan. Or you can say really talking about a gift. But it's still no proof of lokasha. My gova, menach. What do you mean collect from the last guy? As if to say that whatever was there first, if it's meshubet to somebody. In other words, Reuben had a first shibet because he was given the stuff first. And then afterwards, what was left was given to Shimon and then to Levi. My menach means that the last guy's going to lose out. Why? Because effectively, when the guy died, it says, yes, they were gifts. But they were gifts. But he first gave it to Reuben. So Reuben gets the first 200. Whatever's left from there goes to Shimon. Whatever left there goes to Levi. So there was an order over there. And when it says you collect from the last guy, it doesn't mean that you collect from the last guy, even though it was a gift. You want to say it applies there too? No, it could very well be that by Matana generally you don't say that rule. The Govman Achron in a nifsach means that the last guy is going to lose out, meaning you can collect from the first guy, first, second, or third, because these were gifts. These weren't sales. Michael didn't buy it. He was given it as a gift. And by gifts, maybe we don't say that. What does it mean, El Nifsar El Achron? We mean that if he collects from the first guy, if the debtor, the creditor comes down and collects from the first guy will go to the second guy and say, listen, I had a prior lien, give me yours. And if he collects from the second guy will go to the third guy. It means that only the last guy will lose out. Certainly in this case, Reuben has a prior lien to Shimon, and Shimon has a prior lien to Levi. But it doesn't mean over here that you collect from Levi. It means you can collect from Reuben, and maybe you could take the Bainus. If he had better land than Levi, take from him. But all it means is that the last guy is the one who's going to lose out at the end. But you can't collect. Or you could say there is no. Maybe this case is speaking about where he didn't have better land, average land, and worse land. They all have the same kind of land. So obviously it means you collect from the last guy. It doesn't make any difference. You go into this. You can't prove over here. It's given to Shabbat Kakao, so Kulam Bainus, so Kulam Zabur, they're all the same. So you can't prove anything. We're trying to prove over here that what's the whole issue? That when the rules about Edis, Siburis, and Shbenas, wherever you collect from, that's if I have the land. If I don't have the land because I sold it to somebody, right? Then you can't take you got to take whatever I have. But I don't know if I gave it to somebody. So if I gave it to somebody, one proof in the case of the Shemira that even though I gave it, there is a priority over here, and therefore the rabbi said the rule. But you can't take it from him, even if I gave it to him, you still have to come and take my worst stuff. You can't prove it from there. Either that was a chov, or it was a gift, and maybe it doesn't really mean you can collect from the last guy, or maybe from the last guy, but all the properties were the same. We're trying to say, if I had good land and I gave it to Michael yesterday, now all I have is bad land, and you're supposed to be able to collect good land from me. But if all I have is bad land and the good land that I have is given to Michael, certainly if it's sold to Michael, but even if it's given to Michael, perhaps in that case, you can't collect from Michael, you still can only collect from me. The Mishnah said another halacha, that when it comes to, let's say a Goslin stole a field and he sold it to somebody else, sold it to a purchaser. Now I come and take my field. You stole it from me. I'm the nigzo. I want my land back. I take my land back. Okay, I have to pay him if he put some fertilizer in there, fine. But let's say he grew a lot of fruits. So I take that whole thing back. Now, the guy who bought the land, the purchaser who bought it from the Goslin is going to go to the Goslin and say, I have a star over here. You owe me money. Not only for the land, I pay you $1,000 for the land, but also there's $100 worth of fruits there that Ephraim took back because it's his property. So can you collect that? You can collect the $100 for the fruits too, but only from Nechasim Echor. That's what the Mishnah says. Only from property that's not lean. What's the tikkun olam over here? My time. What's the reason? What's the tikkun olam? Amar ulam Rosh Lakish v'shein ksuvim. It's not written down. In other words, what happened over here? The Goslin stole my field and he sold it with a document and lawyers and everything. He sold it to the purchaser. Now the purchaser lost the land because I took it. It's my land. But he's going to go after the guy who sold it to him. They got it. And he said, I got a shtar. He took him to court. Okay, he's got a shtar. Then he paid $1,000 for the land. What about the $100 for the fruits? Okay, you can collect for the fruits too, but not from the Chasim Mishubarim, not from property that was sold to somebody else. Why? In other words, if the Goslin had land, he has no land, he has no money, he has no nothing, so put him in jail. You can do it. But if he has land, you can even take land that he has that he sold to somebody else subsequently. You have a prior lien because you bought the land, right? The purchaser bought the land from the Goslin before he sold the other land, so he's entitled to land. But for the payers, he can only collect from land that the Goslin has now. Can't collect from property that was mortgaged to somebody else. My time because that part's not written down. In other words, it says I bought you land. I bought a piece of land for $1,000. That's written down. Everybody knows. Anybody who bought land from the Goslin subsequently should know that there's a prior lien because he sold a piece of land to the purchaser for $1,000. But the fruits aren't in there; they weren't around when the purchaser bought the land from the Goslin. There were no fruits there, so he didn't. That's not known about. It's not ksubim. It's not written down. People won't hear about it, and they can't protect themselves. What about one of the other things is you want to collect for food maintenance for an almana or for the daughters? That's the command exhibits as if it's written down. You don't collect for that either. In other words, a woman can collect through $200 if I'm going to buy a field from some guy. I'm going to see what are his liens, what are his prior mortgages, his prior liens that he owes money. He owes money $200 for the wife, fine. He owes for that. I covered with those things, right? But what about the food? Food is that's written down, and still you can't collect that either. And that's like it's written down, and you still can't collect. I think that was the original takana. It's as if it's written down for B'nai Chorin. You can only collect from property that he has now. But not that property that's that's obligated to somebody else. It's not written down. In other words, you don't collect for fruits in the case I told you with the Goslin, or for a woman's and their daughter's maintenance sustenance, and you can't collect that either from the Chasim, even though that's written down. And that was what was written down. It's as if it's written down. In other words, even if there's no ksuba, right? There's a deal. Even if the husband writes no ksuba, it's like there's a ksuba. He has to give her $200. and it's right in there that, any children that you have before they get married, they can also take from my estate until they get married and until you get married, remarried. That was not the context. You can only collect from land that's not obligated to somebody else, property that is obligated to somebody else, but you could collect from land that's not obligated to somebody else. It's something for that. So one answer is, why can't you collect for Chilas Peh from Mishabanim? Because it's not written down, meaning any later purchasers or borrowers of money from this or lenders of this guy will not know about the fruits. How am I going to know about fruits? I know that he sold the field for $1,000. I know there's a ksuba that he owes $200 for that, but I'm not going to know how much money is there for how much food the wife needs, or how many fruits grew on the land that he's not going to know about. Because there's no fixed amount. In other words, $1,000 is fixed. You paid $1,000 for the land. $200 in the ksuba, that's fixed. But the fruits, who knows how much that is, right? It's not a fixed amount, so people can't protect themselves from that. And also, creditors are not going to know. Oh, I know you have a credit of $200, but there's also a deal that his estate is going to have to pay the wife and the children until they get remarried. Who knows how long that's going to be? So it's not a fixed amount, and therefore you can't protect yourself from it. People aren't going to know. See, when the regular shtar is written down, people know. Oh, he sold a piece of land for $1,000. He has an outstanding loan of the ksuba for $200. People know about this as a whole, but about these things people don't know. The more just asked a question of Chanina, who said the reason not because it's not written down, because it's not a fixed amount. But Chanina ksuba boy, does he need it both written down? Only if it's written down and it's the set amount, or is he required to be, as long as it's a fixed amount, even though it's not written down, that's good enough. Even though it's not written down. In other words, how can you have a case where it's a set amount where it's not written down? Tomorrow we'll try to prove that case. According to Chanina, Gemara is going to try to prove does it have to be fixed amount? If it's fixed amount, even though it's not written, is that good enough? And like the last Rashi on Amid Bey says over here, the original takana was for ksuba. I don't want to buy a field from you in Mazani Shabbat of Chazar of Lamas. I want to buy a field from you. You say, okay, you don't have any other obligations except for ksuba. That's $200. Yeah, but she's going to be able to get the $1 million for food and the maintenance and clothing, for as long as they never get married. Maybe it'll be another 20, 30 years of that. So a guy can't protect himself from that. So therefore, the rabbi said, no, you can only collect that benas mechor, not mechasa mishubarim. So if those fields, if the $200, yes, that's written down, and that's a fixed amount. But something which is not a fixed amount, you can't protect yourself from. So if there is money to collect the ksuba, the guy has cash in the bank, he's got property available, fine, take that. But you can't collect from property that he sold things that are not written down, like fruits or like maintenance, sustenance, food allowances going on in time forever. All right, we'll try to prove the shallow tomorrow. Or if Chanina comes from Chanina, does it have to be a fixed amount and written down, or even just fixed amount, that's good enough.